Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Weekly History Chaos Podcast, Episode 8. If you're a new user, thank you for checking it out. If you're a returning viewer, or listener in this case, thank you for coming back. We are still talking about World War I today, and we're actually going to be focused a little bit more on Russia today. I do have some topics picked out. We're going to try to keep today's episode a little shorter than last time. I've been requested that maybe just trim down the episode length just a tad. That way there's just not so much going on in each episode. So yeah, that's our goal. So sticking with that, we're going to hop right in. While I'm drawing this first topic, if you could, please follow me on YouTube, TikTok, any way you can. You can look up DOS Bear and you'll be able to find me. I would just super appreciate it. I've been doing live streaming more for video games lately, and it'd be cool if I had more people support me. Let's see what I can... I do not have my wife's amazing handwriting today. I just have my own, so hopefully I can, butcherly read these. Okay, so the first topic today. Why was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, or I guess why did the assassination of this person start World War I? And the truth is that so Serbia was a separate nation from Austro-Hungary, and this Ferdinand was the leader of Austro-Hungary, right? So Serbia was separate, but Austro-Hungary always viewed Serbia as as belonging to them. Like it's their territory, their land. So whenever the Archduke was assassinated, very quickly Serbia, because of rising tensions that lately happened, was blamed for it. Now, when Serbia was blamed for the assassination, Austria-Hungary, threatened a war against them. Well, Serbia is a Slavic nation which had support from Russia, and Russia had support and an agreement from France. Russia was in a delicate time period as Russia always viewed itself as a major power, but most other Western European countries did not view Russia as a major power. So what that led to was that Nicholas the Tsar believed that he had to uphold every promise and everything to show that they are a power. They didn't want people to think that they're a weak nation. So he pretty much threatened that if Austria-Hungary went to war, then Russia would go to war with them. And when that came up, Germany supported Austria-Hungary. And Germany said, no, if you go to war with Austria-Hungary, we're going to go to war with you. Which Germany was half fine with that because that gave Germany an excuse to declare war on France because they thought they could knock out France really quick. And that was kind of their plan. So really, it became a political thing. Austria-Hungary wanted the Serbian territory back. They wanted revenge against their leader getting assassinated. Russia just wanted to protect their honor and their name. And honestly, the Tsar in Russia really needed the boost in his image. They lost a war recently against the Ottoman Empire. Or I believe it's the Ottoman Empire. They lost one. So there was just a lot of political imaging there. So really, every nation had their own agenda for expansion, and this one thing sparked it all. So that's why it's considered that his assassination is the beginning of World War I and where it continued from there. So yeah, hopefully that makes more sense to everybody. But yeah, I just want to throw that in there because the start of World War I is a little bit more confusing compared to, I guess, other wars because it kind of led from one thing to the next, and it kind of expanded out. A little less clean cut compared to World War II. On to topic number 2. Look at that, 4 minutes in, we're already on our second topic, guys. It's a record for me. Usually I'm still doing an intro right about now. Okay, so this one's pretty broad. It's just Russia and World War I. Pretty much just overall what was going on for them. The reason why France valued their alliance with Russia so heavily was because Russia had a large army. Really did. Had like 1 million man army. It had a huge army. But the problem was Russia was a very large nation, had very limited railway systems. Logistics were pain in Russia. Russia was great at fighting defensive wars, but not very good at offensive war because they couldn't mobilize their forces very fast. And the other problem was their men didn't have enough weapons, enough bullets, enough boots, clothing. I mean, their army was extremely under-equipped. the armies they could build up did not have the equipment there to equip them. So on a man-to-man basis, like compared to Germany to Russia, the Russian man-to-man side of it, like from Russian man to German man, the Russian forces were a lot weaker, even though they had a larger army. That larger army really came to bite them in the butt logistically. And on top of that, they didn't really have any good ways. Like they were in an allied forest, but they didn't have any good ways to receive supplies or anything like that. So they really suffered in that regard. One second, guys. I swear I just chugged a bottle of water before I started this. My throat's already parched. Let me make sure I didn't miss any keynotes. I know there's one more thing I probably missed. So yeah, that's the biggest thing though. Russia lost most of its battles. They tried to invade Prussia. They lost. They just really didn't do well through most of the conflict. They lost a major battle. With every major battle lost, the civilian population, the military, lost faith in the government every single time. And so it built up and built up. And I have more topics going to get to that, but that was just the truth. I mean, getting assigned to the front line and stuff was a death sentence to be in Russia at that point because the leaders were incompetent. They had no military strategy to speak of, really. And there's not enough equipment. I mean, it was just they were ill prepared for war. It was a war they should never been in. That's the honest truth. World War One, Russia should never been involved in. They were not ready for a war at that point at all. So another quick topic. And let's see what we got next. The Russian Revolution. So the Russian Revolution is talking about revolution within Russia. And I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like they overthrew the government. And there's actually twice it happened. So it happened 1917 and I think 1918. I think like right after it happened again. So, okay, so the first time it happened, I might be wrong on the years, but I know the first time it happened, it was about overthrowing Nicholas II, the Tsar. It was about overthrowing him, removing him from power. Well, after they removed him from power, the Duma, which was like pretty sure it's the Duma. It's either Duma or the Dumar, but they were pretty much the Congress for Russia at that point. They decided they were going to make a democratic Russia. So it's going to be a voting system Russia. And that's kind of like what their goal was. And really, to me, that probably would have happened. I mean, there's a lot of different groups of people in Russia, and they thought that democracy would be the best way to represent everyone. So they were kind of going on some there. Now, the communists, Vladimir Lenin, the communists, the Bolsheviks, they did not like this idea. They wanted to have a more socialist government. And there was a lot of political factions going on, but the Bolsheviks were one of the higher standing ones, and they had a central part in the new government even at that point. So the first one, though, was to overthrow that. The second revolution is for the Bolsheviks to be placed into power and actually be the one running the country. But yeah, pretty much the whole reason the revolutions even happened, if you've heard about, I'm not really going to talk about the Bloody Sunday in 1905, I believe, or 1904. That'd be like the first one. It was pretty much where the military massacred a whole bunch of rioters. It's pretty much what happened. It was a riot. It was people rebelling against the government, but I mean, the government pretty much sent the military on them and they massacred them, which really gave birth to future revolutions because people never forgot that moment. But yeah, pretty much the Tsar pretty much messed up because he didn't pay close enough attention to his country. So he believed that his country loved him. He believed that his people supported him wholeheartedly. They would never betray him. He had this false perception of what his country was, and that really wasn't what it was. He didn't really understand what Russia was at that point. He believed that he was elected, by God to rule Russia, and that's kind of like how he believed that he was elected by God to do it, and he was chosen for this, and his people would support him because of that. Well, St. Petersburg, the capital at the time, had the first riot, and it was the first rebellion. It was 50,000 people in 1917. And at that point, there were just so many people, the government had to give in to their demands. They wanted the Tsar off the throne. And that's where it all started. But there's a lot of things that led up to that. I mean, being in World War One, every lost every battle. And on top of this, instead of like as a leader, instead of trying to maybe pass blame off to other people, he just made it worse on himself. I mean, like he at one point, like 1915, he became the military commander over the Russian army as the czar. He was already the head of the government, but then he became the head of the military as well. So now every military loss, they looked right at him, like this is your fault. This is your fault. You're causing this. So he really shot himself in the foot heavily there. It led to these revolutions happening. I will say this. I mean, it's the fate that happened to him and his family is very sad. His family was after they were, dethroned and taken off. His family was put into their summer home, and they were kept there under house arrest for a long time. And then finally, one day, I think it was like a year or two later, the Bolsheviks show up, and they pretty much rounded them up. They brought them down to the basement, and they killed them all. I mean, they killed his children, his wife, his family. They killed every member of his family they can get a hold of, all the Romanovs. It was very sad. It wasn't like a clean execution either. There were signs of like multiple gunshots, wounds. The women apparently had diamonds and stuff in their clothing, which prevented some of the bullets from puncturing the way they should. So they had to bayonet them and stab them. It was a very brutal killing. It was very harsh, very sad. And then at the end of all this, they didn't have the honor to just bury them with respect. They threw them down a mine shaft. I mean, so his life has a very sad ending. Like, it was very, to me, I'm over here reading, I'm just like, man, I just can't believe. I understand they blame someone for all these atrocities in their country. They blame them for their country being bad, but it's like, at that point, exile the man. Send him to another nation. He'll never come in power again. It's a very sad story. And you'll never, and they didn't see it coming. They did not expect to ever be killed. I mean, he thought that he would just lose his thing. At least he still had his family. That was kind of like his thought process on it. So yeah, we're gonna move on from this really sad topic. Hopefully, some more information somebody didn't know on here. We're making good time today, guys. Good time today. I think this is actually, I thought I had two more topics. I think we're down to our last topic. I told you I was going to be a short episode. Let's talk about Vladimir Lenin, or like I like to call him, the feared man. Vladimir Lenin, when you think, okay, other than Karl Marx, the person who came up with the Marxism and communism and everything like that, Vladimir Lenin is the facto mundo, like number one guy you should think of when you think of communism or Leninism, because he actually came up with his own version of it because it was so popular. But this guy was like a political superstar in the world back then. I mean, he was super famous. I mean, he literally could live in any country and like live free because he had so many supporters everywhere that they would like take care of him and feed him and give him housing. And all he would do is literally just write political pamphlets, books, newspaper articles, anything he could to spread the revolution. And it's honestly extremely impressive. He's extremely feared in like every country he was in. He was very closely watched and monitored because they were always afraid that he would incite communist, rebellions and or socialist rebellions in their country. Even to the point that whenever he traveled back to Russia, because the Tsar getting thrown out of power, and he's seen it as a key time for Bolsheviks to rise up. When he traveled back, he had to make agreements to travel from Switzerland because he was in political exile a lot of the time from Russia because he was afraid he'd be thrown in jail. But he had to make a deal to travel through Germany, and Germany said, yeah, you could, because they wanted to get him back to Russia because they knew that the damage he would cause politically would weaken Russia compared to what it's at now. So they wanted that. But he had to travel on a train, and it had to be sealed. He could not leave the train because they were so afraid that this one man, if he just stepped onto German soil, he would just contaminate it with revolution. Everyone would rise up. Throughout World War I, he nominated that all of Europe, all the people in Europe should rise up and incite a massive civil war, and go toward more socialist. He said stand up against these imperialists and create a socialist government. Him and Trotsky, there we go. Man, my mind almost went blank there. Lenin and Trotsky were actually very similar in a lot of ways, and I, for one, I mean, just looking at these two people individually, I really wish that like Lenin would have been followed by Trotsky. I think that Trotsky's version of the Soviet Union would have been a lot healthier and normal version of the Soviet Union than what we've seen with oh my gosh, now my mind's going blank here. Stalin, there we go. Man, I don't know what's going on with me today. Well, I think that Trotsky at the lead of the Soviet Union would have been a lot more stable and better Soviet Union than what Stalin would have ever came up with. I think there'd been a lot less killings and paranoia and everything else that Stalin brung with it. I mean, come on here. Stalin's a damn bank robber. I'm going to tell you that right now. I mean, the guy's, I don't even see, like, looking at the way Stalin's history is, I don't even see how a guy like that became the leader of the Soviet Union. I never can connect those dots. I mean, like, I'm just like, man, y'all elected this guy? Was it out of fear? I mean, it can't be respect. It couldn't have been respect. I mean, I guess he really did. Maybe he learned the fear aspect from Lenin. But Lenin's still loved even today. I mean, like he's a very loved man in Russia still. I mean, people still look up to him. I mean, like there was even like personality cults like in the last 20 years of his. I mean, he's honestly a really, if you look at the history of political figures, he's pretty badass. Just the fact that he had so much clout and power as one man. So yeah, he eventually came back. After he actually led another revolution, the second time the revolution was actually his revolution, putting the Bolsheviks in power, which is his people in the power. And then you had the whole war with the Reds versus the Whites, and the Whites are going to be imperialist, other socialist parties, anything like that. And there was another civil war that broke out in the 1920s, and he was a part of that. But eventually, the Red Army won, and the Red Army is actually like, it got built up. It used to be the Red Guard, or the Red People Red Guard, and then it went from that to the Red Army, and pretty much that's how he became into power. He has survived an assassination attempt before, whenever he lived in Berlin, and Berlin became the capital. He actually got shot and survived it, and that him getting shot in an assassination attempt actually made the people love him even more. I don't know what that is, and if you look back in history, every time someone almost gets assassinated and they, actually get hurt and they live, their popularity like soars in history. So I just think that's kind of a cool fact. But yeah, guys, this was today's Weekly History Chaos episode 8. Very short, and hopefully maybe the next one I'll make it a little bit longer than today. I do have a notice. So going forward, the next episode might be my last episode for a hiatus for a little bit. The holiday season is coming up, but that's not the only reason. The major reason is I have surgery on November 22nd. I will be having an endoscopy and a colonoscopy because I've had some stomach issues going on since February. So I've had some bad health. I want to get this checked out and be as healthy as I can for my son, who's 4. So yeah, just trying to keep myself alive as long as I can in life. But to do that, the surgery is going to knock me out for a while. I could be out for a day, it could be out for a week, I could be out up to 3 weeks. I don't know until after I have the surgery. So guys, if I take a break for a while, I would expect maybe episode 9 to come out, and then maybe I might take a break through the holiday season and then come back the first week of January. But, we're just going to have to see. I'll definitely have more information. I'll think about it more this week. I'll have more information by episode 9. But other than that, guys, make sure you're liking this, following this, commenting, leaving reviews, anything you can to help this out. Share it to your friends, your family. Send it to your uncles, neighbors, friends. Please, guys, anything you can to help me out on this. I super appreciate it. Make sure you're following me on my YouTube, my TikTok, any way you can follow me possibly. Dassbear, it's DASSBEAR. My email to contact me is going to be jdcarson93@gmail.com. Other than that, guys, y'all have a great one, and I will see y'all next week for episode 9.